Hello, I'm Scott Thompson, and welcome to After 10. Creating a creative economy is one of the key values of the Park Geun-hye administration. And to gain a better insight into how that's being done behind the scenes, we are joined today by a special guest, a man who's regarded as the economic brain of the president's economic advisory body, Hyun Jung-taik, next on After 10.
정부는 선진국 추격형 발전 전략을 선도형으로 전환하는 새로운 경제 패러다임으로 창조경제를 추진하고 있습니다. 그동안 정부는 벤처 창업 생태계 조성을 지원하고 벤처 중소기업의 글로벌 시장 개척과 소프트웨어, 인터넷 기반 컨텐츠 산업 육성을 지원하면서 창조경제의 기반을 구축하는 데 역점을 두어 왔습니다.
The organization known as the economic brain for the realization of President Park's creative economy, the National Economic Advisory Council. The council is a specialized agency designed to present economic policies that have the potential to be fulfilled. Holding the key to Korea's economic development from the National Economic Advisory Council, Vice Chairman Hyun Jung-taik. We will hear about the measures he is putting into practice for President Park Geun-hye's creative economy.
Dr. Hyun, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me to this program.
Now, you are the Vice Chairman of the National Economic Advisory Council. If you would, please introduce us to what the council is and what it does.
National Economic Advisory Council is a constitutional organization. It sounds maybe strange to you, but anyway, in Article 93 of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, I think there is a clause for establishment of NEAC. So, as the name suggests, this council's function is basically for advising to the president. What do we advise? Advise, of course, means that policy. So in order to advise policy recommendation, we have to analyze the policy of the government, and we have to make an evaluation. And at the same time, we need to gather the public opinion. So in gathering this public opinion, it's not just one-way communication. The communication is both ways. We hear from general public, and we also disseminate our knowledge or idea to them.
And in the same vein, what policies is the council, what issues is the council currently focusing the most attention on?
At current moment, I think the most important, of course we have to handle various issues, but the most important issue is the service industry. The reason is, as you know that you heard of a lot of Korean manufacturing industry. Samsung is very famous, LG is very famous. But with regard to service, our productivity, Korean industry productivity is only 60% of the advanced, US or European industries. And as you know, compared to United States or Europe, our share of service industry is still small. And in particular, those high value-added service industry, so information technology or finance, still I think Korean level is at the lower level. So the enhancing service industry, we think, is a key for the future success of Korea. And one more thing is this service industry is too much strictly regulated. So there is a room for changing the atmosphere and then making more new entry.
This is something that Finance Minister Hyun Oh-suk recently talked
Yes.
about, the relaxation of regulations in the
Yeah.
service industry. Give us a better sense of what that aims to do and how the process is going to play out.
The key to the policies were compared to, again, that manufacturing industry, I think in most of the activity is free. So if a businessman chose to do something that everything is at his hand. But in service industry, for example, in telecommunication, in banking, quite a lot of ministries, I think they say, no, you can only have these 3 branches, for example. No, this activity you are not allowed. So person A, you can only do this activity, and person B, or you cannot. So these kinds of firewall or that strict regulation is so many. Of course, some service industry is related so-called public industry, for public interest, I mean. So, for example, healthcare or education. But we think in this era of creative economy, the healthcare is, of course, helping the public interest, but at the same time, it is a good opportunity for the industry who are making money as well. So we have to reduce these barriers in this area. So break the barrier and reduce the tight regulation. So basically what we are aiming at is that more open for the newcomers and then increase global competition.
The creative economy, as you mentioned, is really something that President Park Geun-hye is pushing right now. We've talked a lot about it on this show. Your definition of the creative economy, what do you see it as being?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So the reason why many people is saying that the different thing, I think that is right. If the definition is fixed, I think at that moment, it is no more creative. So creation means, I think, there is lots of rooms of flexibility. So different people can think in different way. I think, interpretation is it has 3 components, the creative. The first part is the new technology or new business. So for example, information technology or nano biotechnology is a new technology, or setting up a new company like a venture capital. So promoting that aspect is an important part of creative economy, and the most people think creative economy is related to that. But there are other 2 important parts according to my perception. The second part is that the conversion of the traditional strong industry with this new technology. As you know, Korea is very famous about the automobile or shipbuilding or many other industries. But in order to survive, for example, in the automobile industry, that we have to combine this new technology. Do you know that which industry it belongs? Automobile industry. Can you call it machinery industry? What is it? Yeah.
Good question.
Yes. Yes. Most people think it's a machinery industry, but no more. The making automobile, the most high valued added part is electronics, computers, or this automatic braking or automatic handling. So the electronics or a computer software is, I think, the most important part. So likewise, many industries, we have to combine these new industries. So that is the second part of this creative economy. The third, to me, the most important part is the changing the system. So changing the government working system. So the government is that we're divided so much. But I think conversion of our government working or changing the corporate governance system. You know that Korea very well. So there is some advantage of Korean corporate governance system, but we have rooms for the improvement. For example, how to run a job. So I call this a software. It's not just a software about the computer, but software of running the country, running the system. So creative economy needs the changing of this software of the total society.
You're talking about here really represent or would represent a paradigm shift. This is something that you've talked about before and you're talking about right now. I mean, what does this paradigm shift entail, and some people would again look at this and think these changes would be big changes for the Korean economy and the Korean government. So how do you exactly get there?
Exactly. I think I have explained some part. So I think I just have to mention about this importance of globalization. You know that Korea is very much globalized, and then you can see many tourists here. But still, in terms of, for example, foreign direct investment, many Koreans think that the foreign investor is that they are taking our voucher, the Korean companies. But in this year, I think that China is inducing quite a lot of foreign capital. US is inducing quite a lot of foreign capital. So Samsung is investing abroad, but we need investment from foreign companies like R&Ds. But the people's perception is still not that quite open. So we have to change the system or the perception or the regulation in order to encourage more foreign investment. Let me give you some numbers. Outward foreign investment of Korea, I mean the Samsung and LG and these companies investing abroad for about $20 billion a year. Inward foreign capital, foreign direct investment is only $5 billion. There is a big difference. So we have to change the system. With regard to other sectors, I mean the domestic change, I think one of the key change, as I already mentioned, the education system, but the hiring, firing, and wage system should be changing. As you know very well, Korean wage system is accumulation of year, so I think at the entrance, low, and whatever the result or whatever the achievement of the person, normally if they stay 20 years, I think they get the highest salary. But those kind of systems should be changed. Change it into merit-based system. So if your working experience is only 3 years, if you do good, then the salary should be high.
Let's take a look at the economic growth forecast for next year. The Korean government has put it at 3.9%, the IMF at 3.7%. This 3.9% forecast, do you think it's achievable next year?
Yeah, let me first, explain about the relation between the world economy and Korean economy. This is an very interesting figure. I think you may found it. The blue one is world average economic growth rate. Red one is Korea's average economic growth rate. What do you find? I think it's almost equal. I think it's in parallel. It's about for the past 10 years. So what does it tell is that Korean economic growth rate or Korean economic performance is highly related to world economic performance. So the key question is, will the world recover next year? That is the key question. So IMF has predicted the world economy this year will grow at 2.9%, next year 3.6%. And IMF at the same time predicted Korea will grow 2.8% this year and 3.7% next year. But again, I think that the world and Korea is very similar. So in that sense, I think that projection for 3.7 or 6 or whatever is achievable, provided this world economy is recovering. There is a lot of, or somewhat I think special jargon is downside risk. So there is a downside risk. So if this downside risk realizes, maybe the growth rate will be a bit smaller. But if the world economy, including United States, they goes as expected, I think at least next year's number is a little bit better than this year.
Restoring the middle class, also a big concern, of course, here in Korea. Polarization seems to continue to be an ongoing problem. What can be done? What more can be done to expand the middle class?
Yeah, well, speaking of expanding middle class, that doesn't necessarily mean to pull down the upper level. I think that we like that this middle class going still further and becoming an upper level. That is okay. So the issue is that preventing falling down to the poverty line, below poverty line. So basically it's about that the poor, so how to escape the poor or to pull up from this the lowest class to the middle class. So that is the concept. How can you do that? I think the key issue is that to providing a job. You know that there is a saying that the best welfare policy is to providing a job. And but again, there is a saying that I think that the best that help is that how to teach. I mean, how to catch a fish, not just giving fish. So if you teach how to catch a fish, then I think they can live on their own. So in that sense, Korean government, the current government, is emphasizing the job creation. So we targeted the 70% of employment rate during the term. One of the ways to do this is that try to make a flexible time. So in a sense, it is a flexible, I think, that the working. So make the labor market more flexible. And I was the first Vice Minister of Gender, Ministry of Gender Equality. In Korean world, is Ministry of Women Affairs. Yeah. And in that sense, workers in Korea, as male workers, they work quite a long time and then they work very hard. But these females, even though their education is very high, right, they quit their job. So the labor participation rate is very low. So encouraging this female working participation is one of the key components. So we're basically saying that just working one people in the household and compare that with working two people in the household, that can give more earning. Of course, the government should provide the basic minimum, I think, that support for this margin, those people in the margin, I mean the below the poverty line. Mm-hmm.
In talking about the creative economy, President Park Geun-hye has emphasized the importance of small and medium-sized enterprises. You have done so as well. What role are SMEs going to play in the creative economy?
Yeah, it's a very important role, and then it's again the key for the future success. The foreigners recognize Korea as like Samsung or LG. So a large portion of Korean economic activity is done by these big companies. Well, that is one of the characteristics. But small and medium companies' role is very essential in order to continue this activity. And so that is the reason why President Park Geun-hye, you mentioned that his business delegation was that when she make a foreign trip, in the past, usually the really big companies was the owner or the chairman only accompanied. But President Park Geun-hye, her visit to the United States, her visit to Europe, or her visit to foreign countries, were the accompanied, I think, businessmen include small and business leaders. So what we are helping for these enterprises as in particular about the marketing. They don't have, I think, that they are direct source of international marketing. So this foreign trip of this President He itself is one of the expanding marketing opportunity. But this KOTRA, Korea Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, they help as a branch of many small and medium industries. So these small companies, they don't have the capacity to build their own branches in many different countries. So KOTRA is setting up an office, and then they are acting as a branch office of a couple of companies by that system. And another thing is, of course, the technology, R&D. So the government is helping this R&D activities of small and medium companies.
You mentioned at the very beginning that communicating with the public was one of the council's jobs and getting feedback from the public. How exactly is the council, how are you communicating with the Korean people to explain these economic policies, to help them better understand where the plan is going?
President Park emphasizes to the government officials or to us that look at the field. So not just, I think, sitting at the table and not just making research. So the government ministers, they are going out to the field companies. So we are doing exactly the same thing. National Economic Advisory Council. I've been to a company in the industrial complex. I've been to a welfare center in a district's office. I've been to Jeju Island. I think that is, as you said, it's a free economic island. I've been to Incheon, Songdo, so for industrial complex. So we talk with them and what is the problem, and then we analyze their problem. So that is one way of communication. The other way is that we hold quite a lot of seminars, and so we talk and discuss with the expertise. And I appear on, I think, press and media. I think this Arirang TV, I think the program is a good occasion for me to have a communication with the public. So thank you for inviting me again to this program.
And thank you for being on the show and communicating with us. These are, of course, complex issues, but important issues. We do appreciate you being on the show, Dr. Hyun. Thank you very much.
All right, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time after 10.